Hey everybody, welcome to the GMG review. Today we're taking a look at Warhammer Age of Sigmar Death Battletome Nighthaunt, a new sort of 3rd edition update to the Ghosts with the Most for Warhammer Age of Sigmar from Games Workshop, which they kindly sent along as a advanced complimentary copy to review. So, well, what do we got? Well, we got two things. For a little bit of a change, we got the book, and what? We got some cool tokens, kind of Gene Stealer cult wise. And because there are a bunch of effects that you can be under when you're standing next to a scary ghost, they gave you some handy card tokens and a 9-inch measuring gauge because, I mean, everything has to be 9 inches away. If you're in 40k Age of Sigmar, if you're gonna deep strike, that's the range that matters most. In full color, which is nice, and in that nice heavy cardstock. So that's a nice little sweetie that they gave you on top of having the book. Of course, this does come with a digital download code to add it to the Age of Sigmar app as well. And inside this full color book, we got 96 pages of delightfully stratagem-free rules, narrative, and matched play. So we got some Path for Glory stuff, the allegiance abilities, which interestingly make these less desirable as allies. A lot of what used to be on the war scrolls for certain things is now just an ability they have. And then, of course, our match play stuff for the grand strategies and battle tactics. And then all our war scrolls, including the big nasty himself, Nagash, Supreme Lord of the Undead, now the most recent profile form. So I imagine what all the new profiles for him are going to look like. It talks about the Necro Quake, of course, the big sort of like explosion of death magic that big old jealous Nagash rips across the mortal realms, how that goes horribly wrong for so many reasons. He ends up warring with the elf gods. And just going back to sullenly sit in his room and listen to My Bloody Valentine and go, "But Mom!" for the next like couple hundred years. While the Stormcast continue to expand, and of course, all of the bad things happen in Gur. So, yeah, this is the Chronicle Morphidus, talking about where all of his sort of like main generals and characters come from. It breathes in a little bit of other stuff about the different leaders like Olinder and Kurdos of Valencia, the Craven King, and all the different people that sit underneath them. And then 2 new hosts, which is cool. There was 2 kind of like campaign booked in. You had the Emerald host for Lady Olinder, and of course you had the Grieving Legion, which was the one for Kurdos of Valencia. But now we got the Scarlet Doom and the Quicksilver Dead, and I'm hoping that either of these get cool big characters to lead them as well, which would be cool. They have not alluded to who those might be in the background for them, but just kind of talk about who they are. We've got speedsters, and we've got sort of like suck your blood murder guys. And each of them kind of features one of the unit types as their big bad. So like chain rasps, mounted stuff, the banshees, and the banshees and the stab banshees, the ones that don't scream. I can't remember what they're called. Stab banshees, I don't remember what they're called, but the ones with the stabby arms. And of course, talking about Nagash and all the different champions. We got our cool new guy here in his boat, Ulrak the Drowner, who's like sort of like an evil ferryman, just kind of cool, evil river Styx fella. And all the new characters as well. So as we go through, we can see all of the unit types that have been added to this host as we go, including the Scriptor Mortis. And what this is basically a follow-up to, of course, the 2-player battle box that had this model in it, the Scriptor Mortis, and the new Daughters of Cain stuff, because you can see that reviewed today as well. Lovely color section. The Scarlet Doom, that looks like a nice, easy paint scheme. I feel like Owen would have loved this Ghost paint scheme because he just prime everything black, zenithal it, do the metallics, and then cover it in blood for the Blood God. That is an Owen like paint scheme right there. So, Owen, you're in Alberta now. There's your new army. All the new unit types. The Dread Scythe Harridans, that's what they're called. The Stab Banshees. There's too many names for things that kind of look the same. It's killing me. Cool color sections with all the new models painted up. You got a battle ready and a parade ready paint guide. And then the Nighthaunt processions. Here we go, Ash. You've finally gotten to the thing we care about. Let's dive in. So, as I said earlier, some things that used to be on the war scroll for units are now battle traits, which means you have to have the Allegiance Nighthaunt to get them. For instance, Ethereal, your unmodifiable saves. If you take Nighthaunts as allies now, they don't get their Ethereal rule, which is kind of crazy. It also has their ward save, the Deathless Lieutenants, which used to be just like if you're near a hero, it's just built in now. So they have a 6+ ward and they ignore positive and negative modifiers to their armor. Only when they're in a Nighthaunt army. So That ain't great. I mean, it doesn't matter if you play Nighthaunts at all. It just means that you've basically taken one of the key like cornerstone abilities for them and stuck it in the allegiance ability, and so you just would never take these guys as allies at this point, including the heroes, right? Because they'd no longer be ethereal and they'd no longer have a ward save. Then you've got your legions, of course, tied to it as well. Grieving Legion, Aura of Dread. If you're within 3 of Nighthaunts, you can't issue or receive Inspiring Presence, and this has no effect on Nighthaunt units. So you become Terrified. Terrified also unlocks other things later in the rules. So basically, a unit's Terrified, and that's why you have all these Terrified markers, I think. No, none of these say Terrified. These are just the modifier ones. Strike last, -1 save, -1 to hit. Never mind. They come later in the Wave of Terror. They're your Wave of Terror markers. But if you're within 3, you're Terrified, and it can trigger other effects as well. So that's Aura of Dread, Ethereal, your positive, negative save modifiers, and your ward save 6+. Discorporate. You can use command ability when a friendly Nighthaunt unit is picked as the target of a shooting attack attack in the shooting or combat phase. You get up to 5+ ward instead of a 6+. So you can actually boost a command ability to increase your ward save to a 5. Just naturally, you can discorporate and just go woof and like let stuff like pass through you, which is kind of crazy. And then Wave of Terror used to be you'd fight around a combat in the charge phase if you rolled a 10+. Now it's after a friendly Nighthaunt unit finishes a charge move, you can look up the unmodified charge roll and see what effects you get, and that's what these tokens are for. So whatever your charge roll was, you get the following ability. If it's a 4 to 7, Shriek, your -1 to hit rolls for attacks made by that unit in the following combat phase. So if you're affected by, if you're the target of the charge now, you're -1 to hit because they shriek at you. Stun, subtract 1 from save rolls on 8-9 for attacks that target that unit in the following combat phase. And then Petrify, the strike last effect applies to that unit in the following combat phase. So basically on a 4 to 10+ or 4 or higher, you're always going to have some kind of effect on the charge now because your ghosts do scary ghost things on the way in. I love the fact that it happens. I'm sure once I memorize it, it'll be okay, but it's 3 possible things based on a number, so it is a little bit more psychic load. And you can be affected multiple times by Wave of Terror as long as each effect is applied by the unmodified charge roll of a different charging Nighthaunts unit. So multi-charging units could mean that like all 3 effects come into play. Now obviously the -1s to hit rolls and -1s to save rolls are never going to go higher, so that's not going to matter. Actually the -1 to save rolls can go higher because you can have as many minuses to save as possible. So if you get stunned multiple times, I guess you could have minuses to save. Because I'm pretty sure negative modifiers to saving throws is the only thing that isn't capped. So 8 or 9, you could just have guys with no armor all of a sudden because they get multi-stunned. Yeah, and it doesn't say, and then apply the relevant effect. If you prefer, you can pick an effect from a lower modified charge roll. You can always take a lower one too. It doesn't say that multiple effects don't stack. It just says an enemy unit can be affected multiple times by Wave of Terror attacks as long as each effect is applied by an unmodified charge roll from a different charging Nighthaunt unit. So you could just stack stun forever, which, yikes. Then you have Frightful Touch. If the unmodified hit roll for an attack made by a friendly Nighthaunt unit is a 6, the attack wins automatically. So now the entire Nighthaunt army auto wounds on a 6 to hit. But that means that your Spirit Hosts don't cause mortal wounds anymore because that rule is gone. Frightful Touch used to be their thing. Unmodified 6 to hit was a mortal wound. Now it's just an army-wide, everybody auto wounds on a 6. They do, as an army, chuck tons of dice, so that's pretty cool, but you lost your like mortal wound spin. And then Vanishing Phantasms. At the end of the deployment, before determining control of objectives, you can remove 3 friendly Nighthaunt units from the battlefield and place them to one side to be set up in ambush as reserves. At the end of your movement phase, you can set up 1 or more of these reserves in ambush on the battlefield, more than 9 from the enemy. So basically, 3 of your friendly Nighthaunt units can just go poof, and then at the end of your movement phase, go poof anywhere on the table. That was real good. Nighthaunts, that means all the cav units, all the black, it just says Nighthaunt. So like your black coach, your big characters, your, I think probably the knightly dudes are going to be, what do I call it, the dread harrow, the harrows or whatever they're called. They're the ones that'll probably be like little cruise missiles, little bombs. Now, you do have your command traits. A lot of them are kind of the same as before. Some of my favorites are still here, which makes me happy, but there's only 6. You have Lingering Spirit, get a 4+ ward against mortal wounds. Terrifying Entity. Enemy units are terrified if they're within 6 instead of 3, for the purpose of Aura of Dread. And then Ruler of the Spectral Hosts, once per battle. At the end of the movement phase, you can pick a friendly Nighthaunt summonable unit that's been destroyed. After you pick a unit that's been destroyed, roll a die on a 4+, and you replace the unit with half the models remaining. that were destroyed is added to the army and set it up wholly within 12 of this general and more than 3 from the enemy. I don't love that one because it's a 4+ to happen. If it was automatic, I think I'd like that one, but... Or if it was just pick that unit and roll a 4+ for every model in that unit, because then it would be the same effect, you know what I mean? But you could spike high or go low. But having it be all or nothing on a 4+, no. I'd never take it. 3 games in a row wouldn't happen, and I'd just be mad at myself for taking it. Especially when you could have Hatred of the Living, reroll hit and wound rolls for attacks made with melee weapons by this general that target an enemy unit that doesn't have the death keyword. So maybe the best command trait in the game if you're not playing against death very often, and a lot of people aren't. So if you're not playing Bone Reapers, other Nighthaunts, or Death Lords, the Soul Blight, then yeah, you're just rerolling all your hits and wounds. And granted, you don't have the killiest guys in the army or in the game in your army, but that's still real good. Knight of Shades can put a lot of damage when he rolls everything. Spiteful Spirit. At the end of the combat phase, if this general was allocated any wounds that were not negated during that phase, you can roll a number of dice equal to the wound characteristic of this general. And for every 4+, each enemy unit within 6 of the general takes a mortal wound. So you just go and blow up. Cloaked in Shadow, this general cannot be picked as the target of a shooting or combat attack by more than 1 unit per phase. That one's also surprisingly powerful. Like, if you can just dive into the middle of the enemy army and only 1 unit can actually attack you, that could be huge. So I think for my tops, Hatred of the Living and Cloaked in Shadow basically fight for best. If you want to kill Hatred of the Living, if you want to not die, Cloaked in Shadow is also amazing. I think Cloaked in Shadow wins slightly because not dying is always better than killing for most purposes of this game. Then artifacts, they're all divided up between different types. So you've got like relics, magic items, and then, or is it relics, armor, and weapons? There's a bunch of different types. There's like 9 of them, but 3 of each. So relics, Cloak of the Waxing Moon, -1 from the attack characteristic of melee weapons that target you. Pendant of the Fell Wind, subtract 1 from wound rolls for attacks made by melee weapons if they're within 3 of the bear. And then Midnight Tome, wizard only. Once per battle, you can attempt to cast a spell that would summon an endless spell, and it's auto cast with a dice roll of 12 and cannot be unbound. So that was pretty cool. Artifacts power, Weapons of the Damned, Shadow's Edge. Pick a bear's melee weapon. If the unmodified wound roll for the attack is 06, the attack does D3 mortal wounds on target and the attack sequence ends. That sounds cool, except all of your 6s auto wound, so you don't get to roll. If all of your 6s automatically count as rolling a 6, that'd be cool, but they don't. So yeah, I don't know if I love Shadow's Edge. You're losing dice from your own command or your own allegiance ability, and it makes that less likely to trigger. Weapons of the Damned, pick one of the bear's melee weapons. Before the bear attacks with that weapon, pick an enemy unit within 1 of the bear and roll 2d6. The result is the higher the target's bravery characteristic, that weapon's rend characteristic is -3 for the attacks made by that unit, and if they're terrified, it's -4 instead. So yeah, roll higher than leadership, have -3 rend or -4 rend. And then Slitter, when you pick the bearer to fight for the first time in a turn, before the bearer can make a pile move, you can pick an enemy model within 1 inch of the bearer and roll a die. If it's greater than a wound characteristic, they're just slain. So I don't love Shadow's Edge, Reaper, or Sorrows because they're not automatic and they have things that kind of like work against them actually functioning. High leadership models, like you dive into Iron Guts in a leadership 9, you're never going to actually have it work. You dive into any demons, they're all leadership 10, it doesn't work. Shadow's Edge, your own allegiance ability is going to remove dice that have hit from getting that wound roll, try and trigger the 6. Slitter, however, could situationally be very useful. There's a lot of armies that need like their banners or their hornblowers or their champions to stay alive. For instance, the magic casting ability of all the Lumineth is based on the unit champion. So you just roll up next to him and then on a 3+ or a 2+, just go boop, and just cut his neck open. You combine Slitter with Cloaked in Shadow, so you can't be targeted by more than 1 unit at the same time in a phase. You're going to live a long time, and you can pick out a lot of unit champions with that Slitter thing. So, and because you all fly, you can just charge to where you want to be, stand next to them, and then pick them to fight and cut someone's throat. Could be very handy. Yeah, so if I was taking a weapon, which I still probably wouldn't do, I like that one. And then Infernal Treasures, Nighthaunt Hero, Light Shard of the Harvest Moon. Once per battle at the start of the combat phase, you'll release the Baleful Gloom. If you do, add 1 of the attack characteristic of melee weapons of Nighthaunt's Holy within 12 of the bear until the end of the phase. Beacon of Nagash. Once per battle in your hero phase, you can say the bearer will call the Souls of the Lost. If you do so, you can return a slain model to each friendly summonable unit on the battlefield. Soulfire Ring. At the end of the combat, you can heal up to D6 wounds allocated to the bearer. If any attacks made by the bearer slay an enemy model. That one's probably the winner as far as the Infernal Treasures. And then Covetous Familiar. Enemy units that finish a pound move within 3 of the bearer suffer a mortal wound after the pound move is made. That one's also pretty cool. And then Witchlight Lantern, wizard only. Once per battle, the wizard can attempt to cast an additional spell, and it does not know from the Lord of the Underworld, so one of these ones. So again, not the best magic items. You have built-in Moon Shrugs, so you're not taking that from the generic list. I think Slitter has some legs when you have Hatred of the Living built in there. You can make not Hatred of the Living, Cloaked in Shadows. You could definitely live a long time and just kind of jump from unit to unit, stabbing necks and killing out unit champions and stuff. Certain armies I'd be really good against. And yeah, and I mean, even just killing unit champions so they can't issue and receive orders, or like issue orders to themselves if they're all by themselves away from characters. There's a bunch of cool stuff there. And even some baby heroes, like on a 6 they just die. There's a chance if you're fighting some 5-wound, 4-wound hero, you walk over to them and just cut their head off and then still get to fight afterwards too. So it's neat. It's a neat little combo for a hypermobile like general model that is hard to kill and also has like a little like auto slay ability. Spell Lores, Lore of the Underworld. So Nagash and Nighthaunts hero wizards can get these. Soul Cage, cast on 7, range of 12. If cast, pick an enemy unit within range and they strike last. Invisible, sorry. Spirit Drain, cast on 7, range 18. Pick an enemy unit within range invisible. Roll a number of dice equal to the number of models in the unit. On a 6, they take a mortal wound. The anti-Gloomspite 60-man unit spell. Just explode 10 guys. Life Stealer, it's a spell with a casting value of 7 and a range of 12. If visible, pick an enemy unit within range invisible to take D3 mortal wounds, and you can heal a wound for every one not negated. Seal of Shyish, a spell that's cast on a 5. Range 12, if cast, pick a friendly Nighthaunt wholly within range invisible, and they have a 5+ ward. So that's cool, but you can do that as a command ability. So, meh, I don't know. Like it's cool. You can also do it as a spell. So it means you have one that's you can double down on it basically. Shade Mist, it's a spell that has a casting value of 6 and a range of 12. Cast, pick a friendly Nighthaunt within range invisible. -1 to wound rolls for attacks to target them. And then Spectral Tether. Cast on 4, if successfully cast, move the caster and put them anywhere in the battlefield not within 9 of enemy units. And you can't move in the following movement phase. And then processions, they got way simpler, but one's just way better than all the others. So Grieving Legion, dragged into the grave. Enemy units can't retreat while they're within 3 of Grieving Legion units with 10 or more models. So that's the, whatchamacallit, not Lady Olinder. Malcor, the Malkinator, whatever his name is. And then Lady Olinder's Emerald Host. I think this one just wins. After armies have been set up, but before the first battle round, you can pick D3 plus 1 enemy units on the battlefield. At the end of each battle round, roll a dice for each unit you picked on the battlefield. On a 2+, they take D3 mortal wounds. If they're a monster, they take D3 plus 1 mortal wounds. Every battle round, they take D3 mortal wounds on a 2+. Sure, why not? If you don't have healing, you just melt something. You just pick D3 plus 1 anythings and have them take D3 mortal wounds per battle round. Most armies don't have healing. Do you know how crippling that can be? That's insane. That means over 5 turns you're taking 5 plus 5 D3 mortal wounds to something. You can't stop it. You just nominate it. What? So 2 to 4 units in your opponent's army take 5 plus 5 D3 mortal wounds over the course of the game. Sure, that seems like a non-interactive feel bad ability that's too good not to take. I'll take it every single game. I'll make Nick cry with it. It'll be great. Yeah, it's just I don't know why you would do it. I don't know why you did anything else. Anyway, so yeah, you can't fall back, or you could just kill D3 plus 1 things over the course of the game automatically. Scarlet Doom, a Vortex of Frenzied Violence. After a friendly Scarlet Doom Bladegeist Revenant unit makes a charge move, pick an enemy unit within 1 of that unit. If you do so, roll a number of dice equal to the number of models from the charging unit. On a 5+, they take a mortal wound. So, charging causes mortal wounds maybe, versus take 5 D3, or 5 plus 5 D3 mortal wounds over the course of the game. I think this one's just better. And then Quicksilver Dead. Ward rolls cannot be made for wounds caused by attacks made by melee weapons by friendly Dread Scythe Harridans. So no ward saves from Dread Scythe Harridans. I just don't get it. It's just so much better than everything else. After, I feel like I'm reading it wrong. I feel like I need to read it again. I feel like someone's just going to point out Ash. It doesn't do what you think it's going to do. So I'm going to read it one more time. After armies have been set up, but before the first battle round begins, you can pick up to D3 plus 1 different enemy units on the battlefield. At the end of each battle round, roll a dice for each unit you pick that's on the battlefield. On a 2+, that unit suffers D3 mortal wounds. If that unit's a monster, it suffers D3 plus 1 mortal wounds instead of D3. Nope, didn't read it wrong. It's so good. And utterly non-interactive and will make people hate Nighthaunts. Like, guaranteed make people hate Nighthaunts. Path to Glory rules. These are fun. You haunt pieces of terrain. You get to hide inside them and pop out. It has lots of cool quests. You hate the living. You feed on terror. You get stuff when people run away. I like this one. It's got some cool legs. If I was going to do the Path to Glory campaign, I'd probably do it with this army. And then Grand Strategies and Battle Tactics. Luckily, these aren't great. There isn't like an automatic, like, oh, this one's amazing. But there's a couple good ones. Assault to Claim. After deployment, before the first battle round begins, these are Grand Strategies. Pick the enemy unit with the highest wounds characteristic is marked as the target. If more than one unit has the highest one, you can choose. When the battle ends, you complete this Grand Strategy if the target was destroyed by attacks made by a summonable unit. So your guys have to kill the highest wound thing on the battlefield. Fright or Flight. When the battle ends, you complete this Grand Strategy if there are no enemy units within 6 of any friendly Nighthaunt units that are contesting objectives. That one's just go second on round 5. That one seems pretty good. You can also get that one, I'm pretty sure, that, it doesn't actually say you have to have a Nighthaunt unit contesting an objective to score it. Just that there are no enemy units within 6 of friendly Nighthaunt units that are contesting objectives. So you could just get that one being tabled and having no one on objectives. That one seems kind of, it needs to be clarified slightly, but probably the best one. Feed on Terror. When the battle ends, you complete this Grand Strategy if one or more enemy units in the battlefield are terrified. So that's an easy one to do as well. Just charge and have someone within 3 of you at the end of the game. And then Dismantle the Brave. After deployment before the first battle round begins, the enemy unit with the highest bravery characteristic is marked as the target. If more than one unit has the highest bravery characteristic, you can choose which of those units will be the target. When the battle ends, you complete this Grand Strategy if the target has been slain and model chosen to be your general has not been slain. So, honestly, Fright or Flight and Feed on Terror are probably the 2 best ones. I would just take Feed on Terror because it just means you have something within 3 of the enemy. And then you win. For 3. It's not interactive. They can't stop it. Battle Tactics, Chilling Ploys, Nighthaunt Army only. So these are your round 1s. Overwhelmed with Dread. When you reveal this battle tactic, pick an enemy unit in the battlefield. You complete this tactic if they're affected by Shriek, Stun, and Petrify during the turn. That's not great because you need to get a 10 or higher, and then an 8 to 9, and then a 4 to 7. So at least 2 of those rolls need to be 8 or higher for charges. And you have to have at least 3 available charging units, and then to charge the same unit and then get them. I don't see that one as being very viable. Tides of Terror. Complete this tactic if at least 2 friendly Nighthaunt units are within ½ inch of the same enemy at the end of the turn. That one's super doable. Just charge with 2 units. Mass Panic. You complete this tactic at the end of the turn if 3 or more enemy units are terrified. Again, that one's good too. So Tides of Terror and Mass Panic seem like you'll do every game. Death by 1,000 Cuts. You complete this tactic if an enemy hero or monster is destroyed by attacks made by a friendly Chain Rasp or Spirit Host unit. So have a little unit kill somebody. And then One Stop No Return. When you reveal this battle tactic, pick an objective marker in the battle that your opponent controls. You complete this battle tactic if you control that objective at the end of the turn with a friendly Black Coach. So you just go Black Coach something to death, then hold an objective. And then Ceaseless Nightmares. You complete this tactic if 2 or more terrified units fail a battle shock test during the turn. Not as easy, but Tides of Terror and Mass Panic I see probably happening every game once you've engaged. Turns 3 or 4, you'll probably do every game. Nagash. Hey, it's Nagash. He's the same Nagash that ever did Nagash. Tanadust is the same. Soul Stealer's the same. Basically, the big thing with Nagash is that he's the War Master. He doesn't ever get your traits, but he can join any of those armies. He doesn't break their allegiance, and he knows all their army spells. That's really it. He flies. He doesn't get their allegiance abilities. His 9 books work the same. He casts 8 spells at +3/+3. He's got 16 wounds and a 3+ save. So yeah, he's great still. He has a 4+ word for mortal wounds, and if it's a 6, you take a mortal wound back. So regular wounds are the best way to kill him. Lady Olinder, 8-inch move, wound 7. I'm gonna check and see if anything's super changed. I'll pull up my app right now. I remember thinking, because we'd seen this in the new book, a lot of things here were kind of the same. The stuff coming out and going into the whatchamacallit, the core thing was the biggest deal. So she gained 2 move, that's cool. Move 6 to move 8. Still has her Staff of Midnight. It's gained an attack. Still 3 and 3, -1. Flat 2 instead of D3, so flat damage, which is nice. Spectral Claws are gaining a rend. Cast 2 and Bind 2. She's a War Master, so she's always the general now, even if you have another general. That's actually a really underrated and cool ability. Like the fact that you can still hand out a command trait, and that you have 2 generals for like that 18-inch bubble for issuing commands is very handy. And also, yeah, it's just nice. Nice to have 2 generals. 4+ word from Grave Sands. No rest for the wicked. Once you're battle at the start of your hero phase, if this unit's on the battlefield, you can trump to D6 slain models from each friendly Nighthaunts unit in the battlefield. So just bring back D6 guys in every unit that's summonable. Mortica Grief. Roll dice each time an enemy unit issues a command within 12 of this unit. On a 5+, that command's not received, and the command point that's spent was lost. 5+ cancellation of commands is huge. And then lifting the veil, start of your shooting phase, you can pick an enemy unit within 12 of this unit and roll a die on a 2+. They take a number of mortal wounds equal to the roll. Add 1 to the number of mortal wounds the target suffers if it's terrified. So if you're in combat, you're basically doing 2 to 6 mortal wounds. 3 to 7 mortal wounds on a 2+. If any enemy models are slain by this ability, heal D3 wounds allocated to this unit for each enemy model that was slain. So like, you have 7 wounds and a 4+ unmodifiable save with a 4+ ward, and every time you lift the veil at the start of your shooting phase, you obliterate like 3 to 7 guys if you're in melee and get 3 D3 wounds back. You're almost never going to be wounded at the end of your shooting phase. So you got to kill her in one go. And then Grief Stricken, it's a spell that has a casting value of 7 and a range of 18. If you cast it, pick an enemy unit within range and visible to the bearer. Subtract 1 from hit rolls for attacks made by this unit, and add 1 to hit rolls for attacks made with melee weapons by friendly Nighthaunts that target this unit until the next hero phase. So their -1, your +1 is a spell on a 7, and she casts 2 unbinds 2. She, like, the fact that her procession is the best, and also she's basically like Indrasta ×2. Like, she doesn't have the damage output, but she does in the shooting phase because it's just a gajillion mortal wounds. And she can frontline hero and get her own wounds back by being in range. That's amazing. And yeah, and the range of the spell is 12 inches. So she can get wounds back by just staring at stuff within 12. Like, she doesn't even have to be in combat. She just gets bonuses to it if they're terrified. So yeah. And they don't even have to be in combat with her. They just have to be terrified. So if they're in combat with other ghosts and she does it, she gets the +1. She's amazing. And what's her price tag now? I mean, $855 for the big boy. Sorry, $955 for the big boy. Lady Elinder is $340. So she went up appropriately. She's like $215 before. Yeah, $215. So she went up a significant amount, but she's real good. And her Legion's real good. I would take her every game, I think. Kurdos Valencian, the Craven King. Hey, check out how little rules this guy has. Which one do they want you to use? Move went up to 8, same as her. Everything else is the same. Weapons-wise, 5 attacks, 3s and 3s, -3 damage. So flat 3, he's a lot killier with a 2-inch range now as well. And then his Spectral Claws are the same. -1 rend is the big gain. And if I cannot rule, none shall rule. At the start of each battle round, after the players have received their starting command points, you can roll dice if this unit's on the battlefield. Add 1 to the roll if this unit is within 6 of any enemy heroes. On a 5+, subtract 1 from your command or the opponent's command points and add 1 to your command points. What a great ability! Lady Elinder's so much better than he is, it's insane. What do? I hit stuff real good. What does she do? Hit stuff real good plus everything else. He's not even a wizard. Not even a wizard. Kurdos. Oh my god, he sucks. No wonder he's all bitter. He's only 210, so he's like half the cost. Like, no, two-thirds the cost. But yeah, but sucks compared to Lady Elinder. And then Ulrak the Drowner. He's on Warhammer Community, so I won't spend a lot of time here, but he's got a big move. His big thing is he can teleport people. He picks a friendly Nighthaunts unit that he can see, and then himself, and then they both teleport anywhere in the battlefield, and you place them within 12 of him. So you basically fly, like, no matter where he is, if he can see something, he can bamf it. And for his his scything round, when he runs people down on 2+ to take D3 mortal wounds, and guys who die add to the attack characteristic of his Deathwood Ore, which is nice. He is Ulrak the Drowner. Come on, Ulrak, where you at, buddy? Ulrak the Drowner. I'm going blind here. I don't see him. Ulrak the Drowner. Nagash, Team Banshee, Scriptor Mortis. There he is, 175. Yeah, it's a bit spendy. A bit spendy for a teleport. Reignor the Grimhaler, casts and unbinds 1. He flies. Did he get any cool stat boosts? Probably his movement. Everything seems to have gotten its movement increased. Yeah, man. What's his name? Lost everything. He lost his like big smite with his mace. He lost all kinds of stuff. Reignor the Grimhaler. He is move 14, 7, 4+ for every 10. Gain an attack on his Fell Reaper. Gained a rend on it. 3s and 3s, so it hits better too. So got a little kill here. Ghostly Hooves are the same. And then Corpse Candles. You can snuff a candle. If you do so, pick an enemy unit with, or one enemy within 12. They take a mortal wound. If they suffered a unit, I wanted the casting roll. If I suffer a mortal wound, they add 3 to the casting roll. So you can still wound yourself with the candles. +3 to cast is nice if you have 1 spell. And he's named, so you can't give an Arcane Tome. And then Grim Justice, add 1 to hit and wound rolls for attacks made by this guy's Fell Reaper if he targets a priest or wizard. So he's kind of an assassin too. And then Wraith Storm, casts on 7, range 12, pick an enemy unit within range invisible. They take D3 mortal wounds, and if everyone's slain, they immediately suffer an additional D3 mortal wounds. So, I mean, he's neat. He's kind of a mage assassin. Do I love this? For... where is he? Reignor the Grimhaler. 190? That's not a bad spend. He doesn't have any healing built in. Can't take items. I don't know. Scriptor Mortis. This is the one I screwed up. I screwed this guy up when I was reading the thing because I read it backwards. It was the how many mortal wounds you take I was reading, not the what you roll. So basically this guy's the same as he was in the book, but if you roll a d6 under the current battle round number, then they take d6, 2d6 mortal wounds. And the same unit cannot be picked to be judged soul more than once per battle. So that's cool. And you're judged. So you write the name down of the person that's judged in your hero phase. And they can't have the death keyword, and they have to be visible. And sort of your subsequent hero phase, if they're on the battlefield, you must make a judgment roll for the judge model. And the unit cannot record the name of a different judge model in that phase. In addition, if the battle would end, then before the battle ends, make a judgment roll for that judge's soul. And then it's the roll a die. If it's less than or equal to the battle round number, then they're taking 2d6 mortal wounds. So, cool still. I mean, it still could fail. I don't love it for the point cost that it has, because you're talking about, you know, by turn 5 it probably will have gone off and you take 2d6 mortal wounds, but he's not a mage. You can allocate a wound or mortal wound that would not be allocated this here to someone who's summoned within 6 of them, and that's it. So 8-inch move, 6 wounds, 4 save, bravery 10, 155. He's a neat little support hero, but like Olinder's doing what he does better to D3 +1 people just for hanging out in her house. I'm fine with it. Knight of Shrouds and Mounted Knight of Shrouds, same dude basically still, more attacks. 12-inch move on the Knight on Mount, 8-inch on the little guy, 6 or 5 wounds, still a bit squishy. 5 attacks, 3s and 3s, -1 flat 2 damage now on these sort of Stolen Hours. Stolen Hours is if you kill somebody, then you can heal a wound allocated to this wound and add 1 to their characteristic. So you heal a wound and go up by 1 wound. So the wounds being low makes sense because every time you slay somebody, and it's any enemy models, not for each one, unfortunately, you gain a wound, and your wound stack goes up as well. And then for the foot one, you have Spectral Overseer. Once per battle round, this unit can issue the Redeploy or Unleash Hell command to a friendly summonable unit without a command point being spent. And in the combat phase, when you pick this unit to fight, you can go back to back with 1 Nighthunt summonable unit within 12. And they fight in any order you choose. So basically, he's a double fight. And then same with these guys. You can all attack instead of doing the other one for the mounted guy, and then you also can go back to back with Knight of Shrouds and Ethereal Steed. So still a solid general. I feel like give him Slitter on a horse, give him the can't be attacked more than once per phase thing, move 12, charge, fly. Yeah, go in the middle of the army and just like punk stuff, try not to die, and then Slitter little guys. I think he's a cool little assassin, but you could also do it for cheaper with the Dreadblade Harrow. And then have Olinder be your other backup general. Have a double general still. Your Cruel Gas Cruciator, he's, I think, the same as he is currently. He's a relatively modern miniature because he came in a previous army. Cruel Gas Cruciator. You gained the 2 inches of movement. Everything got a little bit faster. His Phantasmal Torture is the same. His talons and flensing knives are 2 damage now, which is nice. So his gun is the same as he got an extra damage on his melee attack. And then empowered through to excruciation. If this unit's within 12 of any terrified units, subtract 1 damage by each successful attack that targets a Nighthaunt unit wholly within 12. So everything attacking a Nighthaunt wholly within 12 of him is -1 damage. That's a freaking cool aura. He's squishy, but again, he's a support hero. He doesn't need to be in combat. He has a gun. And his, where is he? Krogas Cruciator. He's only 150 for a -1 damage to all attacks within 12 of him. He's a cool frontline hero to be hanging out with some chain ghasts. Or chain ghasts, yeah, chain rasps. The ever popular Dreadblade Hero, he was the one everybody took in doubles before, and he's like a little mobile assassin. Still a great dude. Dreadblade Hero, if you have extra ability to give out extra rewards, give an extra item. His core stats are the same. His sword gain an attack and a damage. So he's now 4 attacks, 3s and 3s, -1, 2 damage. And remember, when he charges, he's going to shriek and stuff too. So like that rend goes up. And then his ghostly hooves and stuff are 2 attacks, 4s and 3s now instead of 5s. That's a huge shift. Flies can discorporate. At the end of movement phase, you can remove this unit from the battlefield and set up anywhere in the battle, more than 1 from enemy train features and objectives, and more than 9 from the enemy. So you can go grab objectives really well, especially ones that are on a wing. And then Curse of Loyalty, once per battle round, if your general issues a command, this unit can issue the same command to the same without spending a command point. If it does not, the command must be received by, if it does so, it must be received by a friendly Nighthaunt unit. So he's a force multiplier from your general's command issuing, which is actually really great. Having him be able to shout all at attack, especially if you're back-to-backing, you know what I mean? So like, let's say you took that Knight of Shades, had him all at attack, and then you've got 2 guys, you know, on either end of the battlefield that can then double down another all at attack on 2 other units. You've got a big bubble of people basically force multiplying your CPs, which is pretty cool. The Lord Executioner, this guy wasn't super popular before. I loved his miniature, so I used him quite a bit, but he just didn't seem to kill as much as he needed to kill. Lord Executioner, what did he gain? He gained movement like everybody else, that's it. Gained 2 attacks and a damage. So he's 5 attacks, 3s and 3s, -2, 2 damage. 5 aboard all the time. Start of your combat phase, pick an enemy unit within 3, and they're -1 to wound rolls, just all the time. Staring death in the face. Nice, cheap, stabby murder man. Lord Executioner is 140. Not bad. Guardian of Souls. Notice no more different Nightmare Lanterns. They're all gone. Okay. I mean, it kind of made the Guardians of Souls able to be different. Right now, they're just all the same. So, bit stabbier. Chill Blade does 3 attacks, 3s and 3s, -1, 2 damage. He flies, casts and unbinds 1. Nightmare Lantern, add 1 to wound rolls for attacks made by melee weapons with friendly Nighthaunts that are wholly within 12 of this unit. So he's still a great force multiplier. And then Spectral Lure, cast on a 6. Range 24. If successfully cast, pick a friendly Nighthaunt summonable unit wholly within range invisible. You can heal D6 wounds allocated, and if there's none allocated, bring back a model with D6, combined wounds characteristic of D6 or less, or models. And he is still Guardian of Souls. The Guardian of Souls is 150. So pretty affordable for a nice bring back your main battle line and also +1 to wound. Stick him behind a big unit of chain rasps again, and they start to bamf up quite well. Spirit Torment, again, chains with the chain ghasts. They're pretty much the same as they are in the previous little rules packet I went through. Gain movement, 3s and 3s, -2, 2 damage. At the end of the combat phase, you can pick a friendly Nighthaunt summonable unit wholly within 12. Either heal up to 3 wounds allocated to it. If no wounds are allocated to it, you can return slain models with a wound characteristic combined 3 or less. And then link in the chain for his chain ghast. They're elite, they can issue orders to themselves. Add 1 to hit rolls for attacks made by melee weapons by friendly Nighthaunt units wholly within 12 of any friendly models with this ability, while Spirit Torment is still in the battlefield. So if you take both, these guys get a +1 to hit aura. So all your chain rasps all of a sudden are 3s and 3s. You've got the Guardian, the Spirit Torment, and the chain ghasts, but you're talking about an investment of chain ghasts and Spirit Torment. 95, Spirit Torment's 115, so 210 plus 150, 360 for those 3 models, also 2 hero slots. So 2 hero slots, 360 points out of 2,000, and you're looking at like a nice big 24-inch circle of lots of bonuses. The Tomb Banshee kind of still does what a Tomb Banshee does. Moves 8 now. Piercing Scream. It is a 12-inch range, D3 shots, 3s and 3s, -2/1 damage. So she doesn't just do her howl. She has an actual gun now too. And then Chill Dagger, 2 attacks, 3s and 3s, -2/2 damage. So still handy. And she flies. At the end of your charge phase, you can pick an enemy within 12 of this unit and roll a die. Add 1 if they're terrified. On a 4+, your opponent must add 1 to the number of command points that are spent to issue a command to that enemy unit until the next hero phase. So make people hard to issue commands to. No more rolling off against leadership. It's just a gun. A kind of not great gun. I don't know. I liked her before. I like anything that causes mortal wounds. Tomb Banshee went down in my books. 115. I'd probably never take her. I have one painted, but I don't think I'd take her. And then the Cairn Wraith, probably the biggest got-upped guy in this book. He used to be terrible. Now he's 115 for, check this out, 8-inch move, 5 wounds, 4+ save, bravery 10, standard core stats. 2-inch range with his Cairnoth size, 3s and 3s, -1/2 damage. Eager Death Dealer. The attack characteristic of this unit's Cairnoth size is equal to the number of enemy models within 3 when the attack is made. Go dive into the fattest unit you can see and all at attack or hang out next to... Are you summonable? Nope, because it doesn't matter. Chain Gas get +1 hit no matter what. And yeah, the Guardian's just Nighthaunt unit. It's not even summonable. So yeah, just dive in next to those guys and do models 2s and 2s, -1/2 damage, plus you give them another -1 save from your charge roll. That guy's a little nuclear weapon for 115 points. He will do a shocking amount of damage. Basically, number of models ×2 potentially in damage at a -3 to their, or -2 to their save. And you could stack minuses to save too if you roll multiple 8+, because for whatever reason that's not capped, and I can't see a reason why you wouldn't be able to. So for 115, that guy's gonna be an unexpected, horrifying charge into 10, you know, like ranked up Lumineth that all have to stay within base-to-base contact of each other and do 10 2+, 2+, -2, 2 damage attacks to them and just watch them get obliterated on the charge. Yeah, it's that's a lot. The Reapers, so your big guys with the scythes, they're +1 if there's 5 more models in the target unit. 8-inch move still. 2 attacks, 4s and 3s, -1/1 damage. Remember that if you're in the bubble, you'll be 3s and 2s, -1/1 damage. And then the big Death Knell is just a D3 damage version of the same weapon. The Extoller doesn't do anything different now. Rasps, pretty much same as before, but movement 8, 5+ save. They get their 4s and 4s, just regular attacks. Remember, it'll be 3s and 3s if you're in that bubble, if you set it up. And then Chilling Horde, add 1 to wound rolls for attacks made with melee weapons by this unit if they make a charge. So you could get away from not having the Guardian when they charge, but you just have it all the time then. Because you never get more than 1 positive modifier. Bladegeist Revenants. These were big and popular before. You get +1 attack on the charge. They are elites, they can issue commands themselves. And then your Tomb Greatblade, 3s and 3s, -1/1 damage. So you'd be 2s and 2s in the bubble yet again, and potentially upping the rend from the charges. Craven Thorn Guard, didn't get anything else exciting outside the pamphlet, so 8-inch move. Soul Hunter's Crossbow still doesn't need line of sight and doesn't get cover. You've got, I don't think the ability to benefit from that stuff, because it's just melee weapons for another link in the chain, and just melee weapons for Nightmare Lanterns, so you're just 4s and 4s with your guns. If they had 2 wounds, I think I'd be excited about them. As like a wizard bodyguard or something, or like a back, like if they either had 2 wounds or an 18-inch range. If they had an 18-inch range, they could sit back on like the home objective and just be bodies on the floor and keep guys from deep striking behind you. Yeah, they get good rally command from the standard bearer, but then you're wasting command points on rallying. So I don't know. I just don't see I would just rather buy. So they cost way more points than Chain Rasps. I just put 10 Chain Rasps on it. So 95 points for 10 Chain Rasps, or sorry, not 95 points. That's Ghasts. Or is it Chain Rasps? 110 for 10 Chain Rasps, or for those guys with the crossbows, it's going to be 115. So 5 more points for half as many wounds. Yep, I'll take the Chain Rasps, thanks, and they can just do nothing. These guys might be in it as the most bettered unit. The Glaive Wraith Stalkers that just nobody uses now. Their weapons got really improved. So 1 attack, 4s and 3s, -1/2 damage. They do 2 damage now. Point of death at the start of your first hero phase. If this unit's in the battlefield, pick a unit to be its prey. If they make a normal move, if they were closer to their prey, they get +3 to their charge rolls. And 1 in every 4 models is a drummer, and you get +1 to charge rolls. You're +4 to your charge rolls, you move 8, and you do 2 damage now with your Hunter's Glaive, which is pretty cool. If they had 2 attacks each, they'd be amazing. But yeah, being able to, they're just, like, for being relatively cheap, Glaive Wraith Stalkers, they got way better. 105 for 4. They still come in a weird unit size, just make it 10. These guys unfortunately kind of ate it. Spirit Hosts, only 3 wounds and a 4+ save now, got a lot cheaper. Drawn to war before you allocate a wound or mortal wound to a Nighthaunt hero, instead of making a mortal or a save on a 3+, allocate it to these guys, and then they can make their ward afterwards. So this is a reallocation, and then, oh sorry, it can't be negated. Yeah, so basically they can suck wounds for people. They got 6 attacks, 4s and throws, 4s and 4s, 1 damage. In the bubble would be 3s and 3s, and yeah, only 3 wounds each, but they got significantly cheaper because they don't do mortal wounds anymore. Spirit Torments are 115. Sorry, Spirit Hosts, I looked at the wrong thing. Our battle line for 125 for 3. So 9 wounds for 125. Better save than Chain Rasps, more attacks. It's not bad. The Mirror and Banshee is still great. Spell Eater, they get the 2d6 roll versus successfully cast spells that isn't an unbind. And +1 if there's 3 or more models in this unit. They're still amazing. Oh my god, Mirror and Banshees being every army now for 105 for 4. I just take 2 units and stick them in the back line. 2 attack daggers with damage 2 and -3/-2 rend. They're terrifying in melee. They fly and they just cancel enemy magic in a horrifying way. And it's against the casting value. So even Nagash, he casts a 5+ to cast spell and rolls a 17. I'm going against the 5+. It's so good. And it goes against everything that affects something within 12 of them. Oh my god, they're amazing. The Mirror Banshees are so good. And the Dreadside Inheritance, oh, you poor people. +1 attack on your Crone, 4s and 4s with 4 attacks, 1 damage. Murderous Bloodlust, your +1 to hit and wound for attacks made with melee weapons if this unit is within 6 of any enemy models that have wounds allocated to them, because they're basically vampires. And then your -1 to wound rolls for attacks made by enemies within 3 of this unit if they made a charge in the same turn. I don't know, the Inheritance just don't seem great. But the Banshees are amazing. Banshees are so good. Mr. Black Coach, I actually didn't spend, I'm terrified to paint this miniature and even put it together because it's so fiddly. So I haven't actually looked a lot at it, and I'm not a big fan of non-monster giant things because it's not a monster, so I can't do the Monsters Rampages. So I have kind of discounted it. Its core stats look pretty much the same. It doesn't degrade anymore. That's a huge deal. No monsters degrading. Just does its thing forever. So no more table. That's a big change. Its gun is 12-inch range, D3, 4+, 3+, -2/2 damage. So it's got a decent gun. It's got a bajillion attacks. 1 Soul Reach Grasp, 4s and 3s, -2/2 damage. 4 Scythe attacks, 3s and 3s, -2/2 damage from the guy in the back. The Claws, 9 attacks, 4s and 4s, -1/1 damage, and the Hooves and Teeth are 1-inch range, 8 attacks, 4s and 4s, no rend. 5 ward. Instead of picking this unit to make a normal move or retreat, you can say it will travel the underworlds. You can set up anywhere in the battlefield more than 9 from the enemy. And then Runaway Coach. After it makes a charge on a 2+, pick an enemy unit within 1, it takes D3 mortal wounds. And then finally the Evocation of Death. When it's first set up on the battlefield, place a D6 next to it with 1 facing up. Each time an enemy model is slain or flees within 12 of the unit, increase its value to 1 up to 6. If the value is a 5 or 6, this unit has a 4+ ward instead of 5+ ward. And then once per turn your shooting phase, if the value dice beside the unit 6, you can see you'll unleash its necromantic energy. If you do so, pick an enemy unit within 12 and roll a die. On a 2+, they take 3 D3 mortal wounds, then change the dice back to 1. So it still sucks up death around it. And we got the old Briar Queen. I liked her a lot before, based on the fact that she was just kind of a cheap wizard. And that little baby unit that she comes with was great at, like, just holding zones. Like, she was cheap, she was a wizard, she kind of fought okay, she had a gun. So her scream is 3 shots, 3s and 3s, -3/1 damage, same as before, 10-inch range. Her whip is 1 attack, 3s and 3s, -2 D3 damage. She can fly, she can cast an Unbind 1. She has a retinue. You can reallocate on a 3+ wounds to these guys, and then Howling Vortex, cast on 7, range 18, pick a point in the battlefield, in range invisible. Roll 2d6 for every enemy within 6 of the point. If it's greater than their move, they are take a mortal wound and their move is halved. So I liked that just for, like, screwing with movement. Screwing with movement is a huge deal. And then Thorns, +1 to wound if they make a charge. And that's it. I think that's everybody. No, wait, sorry, I'm talking about Hex Wraiths. I totally forgot about these guys. They have 2 wounds each, 4+ save, 12-inch move, bravery 10. Sides are 3s and 3s, -1 damage for their attacks, and then the hooves and teeth are 4s and 4s with 2 attacks, 1 damage. They get +1 to their side attacks, and they can fly. Phantasmal advance. At the start of your movement phase, you can say they'll make a phantasmal advance. If you do so, double their move, but they can't charge. They can go 24 inches. And then Spectral Hunters, after they make a charge move, pick an enemy unit within 1 and roll a die, and a 2+ to take D3 mortal wounds. So no more mortal wounds from their flails. I didn't notice any differences for the endless spells. Shyish Reaper, cast on 6. Set it up within 6 of the enemy, or so your wizard. It can move and fly. Before moving this endless spell, pivot it to face any direction, move it in a straight line. And then Soul Reaper, at the end of the endless spell, roll 2 dice for each unit that it passed across, and each other one that came within 1 inch at the end of its move. And if for each roll that's equal to or greater than the unit save, they take D3 mortal wounds. So it's a nice little like draw a line, do mortal wounds. The Mortalis Terminexus, its predatory moves 8, sets up within 12 on a 6. After this endless spell is moved, the player who moved it can decide whether it will reverse time or hasten time. Reverse time, heal D3 wounds allocated to each unit within 6. That's cool, a healer. And if this unit is going to hasten time, roll die for each unit within 6, and on 2+, they take D3 mortal wounds. So you can make people old or young. And then Vault of Souls, range 6, cast on 6, predatory endless spell that moves 8 and can fly. A Soul Eruption, after this endless spell is moved, roll a dice for each model within 6, add 1 if they're terrified. On a 6+, that would be a change. On a 6+, that model's unit suffers a mortal wound. Keep track of the number of mortal wounds caused. After the total is 10, roll dice for each enemy unit within 6 of this endless spell, add 1 if they're terrified. On a 2+, the unit suffers a number of mortal wounds equal to the roll, and then the endless spell is dispelled. So basically a D6 mortal wound explosion if 10 guys get wounded. And that's it. Chain Rasps are 110, Grimghast Reapers are 160, Hex Wraiths are 160 for 5, Spirit Hosts are 125 for 3, Black Coach is 335 for 1, All Rock the Drowners 175, Briar Queen's 280 for her and her set, Cannon Wraiths are 115 and got real good, Dreadblade Harrows are 145 and are still kind of great, and for the teleport, Guardian of Souls is 150, part of the bubble, Knight of Shrouds and Shrouds on Steed are 135 and 155, the Cruel Gas Crusader, also kind of important, 150, could be part of the bubble. Kurdos Valenciana you'd never take is 210, and Lady Olinder, the Mortarga Grief you'd always take is 340, and Lord Executioner is 140, got better but maybe not to take. Ragnar, who I still don't think I'd take, is 190, Scriptor 155, probably wouldn't take him either. Spirit Torments are 115, definitely take. Tomb Banshee, no way for 115. Nagash 955, doesn't seem to have a place in here unless you're looking for a power model. Blade Geist Revenants are 175, still slightly better than Grimghast Reapers, and then because you can control it by charging. Chain Gas are 95, part of the bubble. Craven Thorn Guard, I don't see a point for 115, but I'm going to paint the models because they're super cool. Dreadside's Harridans are 160 for 10, probably won't use them. Glaive Wraith Stalkers got better for a cheap 105. Maybe it's like that last little thing. And then Mirror Banshees, 2 units in every army, always for 105. Oh my god, they're amazing. It doesn't really matter what you're fighting against. And then 85 for the Mortalis Terminexus, Shyish Reaper 70, and the Vault of Souls 85. And you can ally with Gravelords, but you don't want to ally back because you lose all your special rules for the most part by being an ally. And that's it. Death Battletome Nighthaunts. Hey, big thanks for watching. I'm excited to play these guys. Next time, Ash. Hey there, I hope you enjoyed that video. There are tons of other games already recorded for you to watch. Click over to my channel page if you haven't already, and have a look through the dozens of playlists full of videos. I guarantee you'll discover a game you haven't seen played before. I put out new videos 7 days a week, and every day is themed to a different genre as I continue to explore the wider world of gaming. Of course, none of that's possible without you, the viewer, so click a like and subscribe if you'd like to stay on top of what's happening here daily. My 2 kids and I are massively grateful to be able to have the flexibility of this job so I can always maximize my time with them. If you want to support me continue to put out this content, it's only possible because of my amazing backers on Patreon who support the studio, equipment, and model cost, as well as being how I make the bulk of my living. You can also help out by buying a t-shirt through Spreadshirt, a measuring gauge or widget from Death Ray Designs, or buying one of my games and supplements like Last Days, Gamma Wolves, and Blaster. As a way of showing my appreciation, patrons get early access to new games and supplements that I write throughout the course of the year. Huge thanks for watching, it really does help out, and happy gaming.